Hello everyone. Today we're going to compare British English to American English by looking at their four core differences: accent, spelling, vocabulary, and grammar. Personally, I believe that vocabulary and grammar are the most fun parts, so make sure to watch this video until the very end. So the first part we're going to talk about is, of course, accents. You probably already know that British accent and American accent are extremely different. If you watch a movie, most of the time you can tell which accent it is. Sometimes it's that obvious. When we talk about accents as English learners, we really have to remember one thing. It is important to pick one accent and stick to it. It doesn't sound good if you speak British English and American English just in one sentence. Some of the words you say are clearly British and you pronounce them with a really good British accent, but some of them are really American. So my advice to you is just pick one accent and try to really work towards it. Personally, I picked American accent because for me it's way easier than British English. I think a lot of people agree that British accent is extremely difficult. There are a lot of sounds that are so complicated, and a lot of learners from a lot of different countries are just not used to this kind of sounds. That's why I picked American English. The second reason for choosing American English is that nowadays we're just bombarded with all this information from the United States, like movies, TV shows, everything we watch is mostly in American English. So it means that it's just going to be easier for you and for me to improve our American accent. And of course, here I would like to recommend the book that I always talk about, How to Master the American Accent. I genuinely love this book because it once helped me improve my accent. But actually, sometimes I refer to this book like once a month if I forget anything or if I just need to brush up on my knowledge of the American accent. So now let's actually talk about the difference. And the most obvious difference for a lot of English learners is that in America, people always say the letter R. And it is true. But now a quick history lesson. The differences between American and British accents actually took place after the first settlers moved to the United States, when the America was first discovered. Back then in Britain, all people talked using a lot of R's in their speech. So back then, like a lot of years ago, in Britain, people actually pronounced all the R sounds. And this kind of speech is actually called rhotic speech. It's when you pronounce all the R's. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, the middle classes decided to distinguish themselves from the common masses by just dropping the R sounds or by making them softer. And that's how, day by day, British people just started dropping their R's. And now, as you already know, in Britain, most people, not all people obviously, but most British speakers don't pronounce the letter R. And to clearly illustrate this example, I'm gonna try to pronounce some words for you and try to make them as British as possible and, of course, as American as possible. Water, water. Car, car. Bear, bear. New York, New York. Start, start. So this was just a rough example of how American English is different from British English in terms of pronouncing your R's or dropping your R's. So probably, as you can hear, the British accent sounds to me more royal. So of course I can talk about American accent for hours, and that is why if you want like a more detailed lesson, you can check my lessons right here. I have a whole playlist dedicated to training, improving your accent, and making it sound as American as possible. Now let's compare the difference in accents from these two iconic British and American movies.
The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain.
Didn't I say that?
No, Eliza, you didn't sigh that. You didn't even say that.
Well, it was really sweet and like the most romantic thing ever.
Well, hey, here's to Phoebe, who's found the greatest guy in the world. To Phoebe and...
And now let's talk about the second part, which is spelling differences. While writing a text, you may have found that your text editor marked a word as incorrect. You know, like sometimes the word is highlighted or there is like this cursive line under the word. But then you check in the dictionary and the word is actually correct. Congratulations, this is where the differences in spelling in British and American English are most obvious. So now let's take a quick look at the 4 most common spelling differences in American and British English. So the first one is OUR endings. These are British. So this is how we spell the words humor, color, behavior in British English with OUR. But in American English, it's a little bit easier, I guess. It's just OR, so we drop the U. We don't need it because we don't really pronounce it. I mean, we don't pronounce it at all, so why would you need it? That's why we just say humor, color, behavior. The pronunciation is the same. The difference is that just how we spell these words. The next ending is going to be TRE. TRE is British, like theater, center, and TER is going to be American, theater, center. The next ending is going to be ISE or YSE. So with the letter S, it's going to be British, like specialize, localize, analyze. And for American English, it's just going to be IZS or YZS. Analyze, localize, specialize. And the last spelling difference is going to be about EL or ELL. ELL is British, like cancelled, marvelous. EL is American, like you can spell traveled with one L, cancelled with one L, and marvelous with one L as well. I advise you to use one option, right? Just use American or British English, only one of them. Don't mix them together, especially in your essays. Guys, it's gonna look so ugly if like half of the words you use is going to be with British English, half of the words are going to be American English. It's just people know about these differences. Native speakers, they do know that you should spell cancelled with one L if it's American English, or localize with a Z if it's American English as well. So please change the keyboard settings on your computer to American English or to British English and just stick to it. And now let's talk about the third difference, the difference in vocabulary. This is actually my favorite part because I love everything connected to words, phrases, things like that. And it's actually the easiest part. So you just have to memorize words, that's all. It's actually pretty easy. And it's also extremely interesting. So in American English and in British English, people just use different words to refer to the same thing. And I made a worksheet for you again because I think it's a really good reason and it's a really good topic. You can access the worksheet via the link in the description to this video. And when you go on that website, you can notice that the price is going to be $2+. It means that you don't necessarily have to pay $2. $2 is just the minimum price. You can pay $5, you can pay $3, it doesn't make a difference. Just the minimum price is $2. I don't know, I just love this worksheet and how it turned out. I made everything myself from scratch, so it's just a really good resource. So in this worksheet, you can find 32 examples. But now I'm still gonna just teach you a couple of them from this worksheet. For example, in British English, people say a flat, yeah, to live in a flat. But in America, people say apartment. Yeah, this is my apartment. I live in an apartment. Instead of saying lift, people in America say elevator. Instead of saying chips, people in America say fries. Instead of saying holidays, people say vacations. Trousers are going to be pants in America. And a film is going to be a movie. You take out trash or garbage in American English and not rubbish. And when you want to go run or work out, you put on sneakers and not trainers in America. And the last example is going to be sweets versus candies. In American English, people love eating candy and not sweets. And now let's take a quick look at money in British and American English. The topic of money can get a little bit complicated, especially when we travel from like the United States to the United Kingdom. It can get a bit complicated, especially how sometimes people call their currency. Like, it's not just dollars or it's not just pounds. There is way more to that. The colloquial term for the British pound is quid. This word is really important. Even if you want to focus your attention on American English, you should still know the word quid. Instead of saying 5 pounds, people might just say 5 quid. And in the United States, dollars are really often called bucks. So instead of saying $10, you can say 10 bucks. But unlike the British, who call coins smaller than 1 pound a pence, in America, people call them cents. But they go even further. They often use the word nickel for 5 cents, dime for 10 cents, and a quarter for 25 cents. And now let's talk about the fourth difference. The difference in grammar. So first, let's talk about collective nouns. These are just words like a team, family, police, choir, band, committee, things like that. So in British English, collective nouns are usually singular or plural, but mostly they are plural, pointing to the fact that there are a lot of people in this group. Like a band consists of some people, right? A family as well. Committee, there are people there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people there. So in British English, it's way more common to say, my family are coming over tonight. So we're using are because family is plural. But in American English, collective nouns are usually singular. So people will always say, my family is coming over tonight. But one exception is police. I don't know why in America people always use police as a plural noun. Like, the police are all over the city today. The police are. People rarely say the police is. I personally never heard this expression. So I think it's going to be all for today's video. Just now, I taught you 4 core differences between American and British English. Of course, there are way more differences in each sector, like in grammar, there are way more differences in vocabulary, there are also more words. So if you want to, I can make part 2 of this video really soon. So don't forget to check out my worksheets. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video as usual, and follow me on Instagram. Check out my Patreon page, and see you next time. Bye!